Good morning and welcome to the Business of Dentistry Virtual Forum. We are so excited to have you join us for today's featured session, How DSOs are Using Technology to Build Patient Trust. I'm Laura Dydra with Becker's Hospital Review, and I will be your moderator for today's session. Before I introduce today's panelists, I would like to go over just a few housekeeping items. You'll find a few of our engagement tools on your dashboard. Be sure to check out our resources section and fill out our event survey. Finally, this session is being recorded and will be available on demand following today's event. We will send you instructions on how to access the on-demand recordings once the event concludes. At this time, it is now my pleasure to start today's program by introducing our presenters. Dr. Kyle Stanley is an award-winning dentist and the Chief Clinical Officer at Pearl, an AI company specializing in diagnostic and business analytics solutions for dental industry. A graduate and former faculty member of USC's Herman Ostrow School of Dentistry, Dr. Stanley's aesthetics, dental implant, and smile design research has been published in the top international dental journals. He has been honored with the AAED's Charles L. Pincus Award for Outstanding Achievement in Aesthetic Dentistry and named to the AACD's The Next Generation of Cosmetic Dentistry and Seattle Study Club's Top 10 Young Educators in Dentistry lists. As a key opinion leader and public speaker, Dr. Stanley has become the dental industry's leading advocate for mental health awareness. His private practice is located in Beverly Hills, California. Second, we have Dr. Rowe. Dr. Rowe is a dentist, entrepreneurial, experienced DSO executive, and respected dental industry leader. He is president of Dental Bar, where he is currently leading a rapid expansion of patient experience-focused New York-based DSO. A graduate of the University of Illinois at Chicago College of Dentistry, Dr. Rowe also holds a master's in business administration from Loyola University with a dual emphasis in finance and marketing. Starting with a single location in 2008, Dr. Rowe led the practice on an exponential 10-year growth path from 3 employees into a 25-plus network of multi-specialty dental group practices with almost 100 dentists and dental specialists. In 2019, Dr. Rowe founded a dental consulting firm, DSO Strategy LLC, which was created to help entrepreneurial dentists strategize for growth. Dr. Rowe is perhaps most known for his role as head of dentistry for Walmart. After leading successful development and launch of the retail giant's retail dentistry division, Dr. Rowe stepped away from Walmart to pursue consulting and advisory work for the healthcare industry at large. He continues to serve as a key advisor to multiple private equity funds and banks. At this time, I am pleased to turn the floor over to Dr. Stanley and Dr. Rowe to begin today's presentation.
All right, everybody. Well, it's really an honor to be here. We're going to be talking about how DSOs are using technology to build patient trust. And patient trust, as a practice owner myself, I think is a topic that isn't discussed enough. And there's a lot of different aspects to it. So let's get right into it. On the agenda today, we're going to bring this topic up of patient trust and how that influences practice success. We're then going to go to the foundations of trust, which are the little building blocks of trust. Then we'll go to the difficulty that DSOs have with building trust, just inherently by being a DSO. We'll discuss that. And then I'm going to bring on my friend, Dr. Roshan Parikh, who is the president of Dental Bar. And we're going to go with individual technologies that can help building patient trust and therefore creating more revenue and success for our practices. So patient trust equals practice success. Consumer trust is essential to long-term success of any business, right? You're not going to go to a business that you don't trust them. And why is this trust so essential to the success of any business? And this is really the timeline of how trust influences a business success. You gain trust with, in our case, a patient, and this patient then becomes loyal. I know a lot of my patients, they never want to go somewhere else. It's like me I'm a car guy, so it's like me with a mechanic. I find a mechanic that I like, I'll pay whatever, I'll drive from wherever, even if it's not convenient, because I have that trust. I really become a loyal client or a loyal patient in our case. So that makes this loyalty turns into retention. And with retention, we then have this recurrent revenue. And this gives you that baseline revenue in any business to be successful. When you have retention and when you have loyalty, then you start referring people. I mean, in the car situation, I'm doing a lot of things with one of my mechanics, and I just referred 2 people to him this week. And, I am a loyal customer, and this happens, this happens with your practices. You've seen this. Your favorite patients, that you're their favorite doctor, they refer people all the time because they're talking about it. If anybody talks about, oh, I just went to the dentist, they say, oh, who's your dentist? You should go to my dentist. Oh, he or she is great. He or she's awesome. And it turns into this big revenue growth that then turns into this circle of awesomeness, because these referrals are built-in trust. So the new patient, even though they're brand new, comes in with trust already. So they're more likely to become a loyal patient, to be retained, and even refer other people. So let's break it down. How much long-term value does an average patient's trust represent? And we'll break it down into the numbers. So you have your average loyal patient. Right? This is a patient that is, coming in for hygiene and exams and radiographs. And here's some examples of, some typical costs. So when you break that down, they're getting exams, x-rays, hygiene. You're looking at, let's say, $400 a visit. Now, whether that's insurance or PPO or, fee for service, either way. So you have $400 per visit. That's what this patient is worth. Hopefully, and more than likely, if they're a loyal patient, they're coming to you 2 times per year. So of course they're coming, that's $800 a year for this one patient. Now, let's say they're a really loyal patient. They want to stay with you long-term. Let's say we have a 10-year retention lifespan. At $800 a year, we're going to $8,000 is what the lifetime value is of this patient. Now, a patient that's with you for 10 years, that's loyal, they more than likely will refer 2 other loyal patients within those 10 years. You do a little bit of math. I used to be an algebra teacher, and voila, $24,000. So this is a pretty significant amount of money from one average loyal patient. But I think we have to remember that not all patients are average. So, when you're looking at the average patient, they're doing, again, x-rays, fillings, cleaning, whatever. But then you go to these patients that are not average, that need implant treatment or specialty treatment. They need their third wisdom, their third molars removed. They need a full arch, implant treatment or full mouth rehabilitation. I mean, we're getting up to a large amount of money for these patients. And the practices that are most successful are when patients are accepting these expensive, elective, and specialty treatments. There's groups of practices that just do this stuff, that just do implant treatment, for example, or that just do cosmetic treatment, for example. And trust is even more essential when the customer's paying more. If you're going to, I don't know, an example of something that's expensive, you're going to need an even higher level of trust. It's even more important because you're spending a lot of money. And anytime money is involved, and a large amount of money, people become more emotional. And we know that, through marketing research, that trust really impacts large purchase decisions. I mean, I could just tell you, I just bought a vintage car, and I bought the seller, not the car, because I trusted them. And it's similar to being a dentist, in that, let's say the patient's coming to you and they need, 10 veneers, or they need a full upper lower denture. They really want to have that trust. And so the key ways that trust impacts practice success is starting with that recurrent revenue of these patients that are very loyal to you. That creates that revenue growth. Then you have a higher revenue per transaction because they have that trust in you. They're more likely to do these elective treatments. They're more likely to do, the composite filling as opposed to the amalgam, or whatever it may be. And that is how trust impacts practice success. Now let's go to number 2 on our list today, the foundations of trust. So building patient trust is really challenging for any practice. Now, why is that? Because we're dentists, and people generally don't like the dentists. They don't trust us. We're one of the least trustworthy professions out there, which is unfortunate because, to us practice owners, we're trying to do our best in a very difficult situation. We work through a Cheerio every day. I mean, it's physically demanding, it's emotionally demanding, but we have to remember the product that we're selling is the smile. I mean, you couldn't think of a better product to sell. However, it still, is painful sometimes. I mean, we have to give injections, and we're going to get into this later when I'm talking with Dr. Rowe. No one likes to leave their work and their kids and their family and drive across town and come to see us, especially when it takes multiple visits. We're inconsistent. I come from a family of dentists. So if you show me a radiograph, I may give you a certain treatment plan. My dad may give you a certain treatment plan. My brother may give you a certain treatment plan, and they're all different. And that's difficult for patients to understand. And then, of course, we have the media portrayal. I mean, let's think about some of the examples. We have the Reader's Digest study, where an investigative journalist went to 50 different offices and got 50 different treatment plans. We have the more recent Atlantic article discussing fraud and mistrust with DSOs. We have the typical, Marathon Man or Little Shop of Horrors depiction of what a dentist is. So this bumbling idiot that just wants to rip people off and hurt people, these masochists and sadists. So we're behind the 8 ball simply from the fact that we're dentists, different than some other medical providers. So how do practices overcome these challenges? Well, in order to trust in a practice, a patient must believe 2 essential things. One, when I go there, I will receive competent care at this practice. The doctor's going to know what he or she is doing, and the care that I'm getting is going to be competent. Next is that this practice will act in my best interest, not necessarily in their best interest, but in my best interest as a patient. Very important here. So how have patients traditionally developed those beliefs? Well, before you come in, I mean, what do we do now if you get a recommendation from somebody, whether it's a dentist or not? You look and you review them online. So we're going to say, okay, if someone just told me that, go to Dental Bar and they're the best dentist in town, and I look at the reviews and the reviews are a 1 star, I'm already not having trust. If the reviews are 5 stars, I'm thinking, oh yeah, makes sense. I see why they referred me. Now, in traditional practices, the dentist has strong credentials and training. So they're looking at, where he or she went to residency and where they went to dental school. And, if they studied under Frank Spear or, John Coyce, or Pankey Institute, or, additive credentials. And the patient has a positive scheduling experience, I think it's important that we remember how important our team members are in our scheduling processes, even before the patient sees the dentist. You could have the best team, or you could have the best dentist in the world, the most charismatic and the absolute top treatment in the world. But if the patient doesn't have a good scheduling experience, if your team members aren't friendly and warm, they may not even make it to the chair. Now we have the first visit. The first visit needs to be efficiently run. You know, they're not waiting in the reception for an hour or two. There's positive interactions with your front office staff and, you know, your assistants. The dentist is personable and charming and empathetic and easy to talk to. I think that's one of the most important things that you can be as a dentist, because most of the time, and my dad told me this, is the patient is not going to say, wow, perfect margins, like your margins are amazing, your crown prep was just fantastic. No, they're going to say, you know, Dr. Stanley really listened to me and he really took the time to understand me. They oftentimes don't know how good your dentistry is. They want the exam to be pain-free, or as pain-free as possible. Again, we're working against this natural human thought to avoid pain. The dentist demonstrates expert knowledge, knows what they're talking about. They communicate clearly. The dentist educates the patient on the clinical necessity for any treatments, educating them on why they may need this. And it's more of a consultation than saying, we need to do a filling, we need to do a crown, but why? And giving the patient the option, right? The sharing in the decision-making. So, you know, Mrs. Jones, I feel that we should do a crown on this tooth because there's a crack here and you're losing this part of it, etc. You know, ultimately the choice is up to you. And I would like to tell you that this is what the cost is, this is what the risks are. You may need a root canal in the future if something goes wrong. You know, sometimes the porcelain can fracture a little bit. Being very transparent. I think early in my career, I wasn't as transparent because I was afraid to lose the patient. And what I found was that the more I talked about complications, the more I was transparent about costs even, the more referrals I got. It brought me down from this like doctor level to just a human. And I could really connect with my patients, and it really helped me to grow my practice. So that's the first visit. Then you have the first treatment. You know, the injection needs to be fantastic. When the patient comes in, the office staff needs to be prepared, know what we're doing. As soon as they're done, they get post-op care, guidance, you know, anything they need, next appointment, you know, ice pack, or whatever it may be. It just needs to really work like clockwork. And then post-treatment, you know, follow-up communications, calling to see how the patient is doing, no surprises in terms of side effects. And if there are side effects, you've already discussed them with the patients. Then they're more likely to accept them. It's not an excuse, right? It's just information. Positive treatment outcomes. And then going forward, the patient develops personal rapport with practice staff. I mean, you probably know in your practices, I feel like some of my patients are coming in to see my front office staff. They love Lucy in the front, or they love Diana, or, you know, Laura in the back is just great. They love talking to these people. And the practice staff understands and anticipates patient needs. Oh yeah, remember, you know, Mrs. Smith, she always likes to have a pillow under her neck. Or, you know, Mr. Jones, he's always cold, so let's make sure we get him a blanket. Little things like that can make a huge difference on building trust. And then they have a consistent experience. It's convenient, the scheduling is efficient, the clinical approach is great, the treatment quality and the outcomes are great. You will have a patient that comes back and back and back and refers other people. So the building blocks of trust, again, I will receive competent care in this practice. And that goes through when you break that down, that is these well-reviewed or recommended, efficient practice operations, evident knowledge by the expert, the dentist in this case, team-wide alignment, pain-free care, positive treatment outcomes, and consistency. People like to know when I'm coming into this foreign, scary, expensive type of medical treatment, at least I can have consistency, because everyone's afraid of what they don't know, afraid of the unknown. When we're looking at the other building block of trust, this practice will act in my best interest. We're talking about communication, patient education, consultative treatment planning, shared decision-making, transparency, personalization in treatment, and convenience. So let's discuss the DSO trust deficit. The DSOs struggle to establish the building blocks of trust simply because they're a DSO. Clinical excellence of dental practices is traditionally attributed to the individual doctors or the doctors who lead the practice. So for example, my dad's practice, very typical kind of PPO practice. The name of the practice was Dr. Paul Stanley, DDS. It was like, that's it. So people are coming to see Dr. Stanley. And that's difficult in a DSO standpoint when DSOs are more known by a brand, not necessarily a doctor. So patient trust is traditionally relationship-based and develops over time through consistent positive interactions with the same doctor. At my practice, I have more of a high-end, low-volume style practice. And so for us, it's all about relationships. But with a DSO, you can't really ensure that. Let's say one day you may see me, one day you may see another doctor, one day you see, Dr. Smith, Dr. Jones. They may be different assistants. You may do split schedules. So it makes it difficult for these DSOs to build relationships without consistently having the same relationship with that patient. The other thing that you have is that many people are predisposed, to distrust large businesses and corporations. So 53% have a negative feel towards a big business. And DSOs have to overcome bias against corporate brands before they can even begin to earn a patient trust. So from the very beginning, just to get them in the door, you have to get over that fact. And number 4 is all DSO practices share the same corporate brand identity. So, let's say I have a dental office and it's, Kyle Stanley, and I have a bad experience with a patient. The patient writes a bad review or starts, telling friends bad things about my practice. That only impacts me, Kyle Stanley's office. But with a DSO, one isolated incident can undermine the entire patient trust in a brand. So, if that office has the same name as the other offices, they see that and they may read it on accident or look at, another Yelp or Google review, and that can undermine the trust that DSOs struggle to have from the very beginning. So let's discuss the technology of trust. Technology is a DSO's surest path to patient trust. That's because it performs key trust-building functions. It reduces dependence on human expertise because you're offsetting that. So even if you don't have the best humans or the right people, sometimes the technology can level the playing field so that, even if you don't have those optimum providers, the patient can still have a good experience. It scales easily, unlike us humans, and it creates consistent brand experiences. So if all of your practices have artificial intelligence and intraoral scanning and CBCT and iPads in the front office, then they have a consistent brand experience no matter which practice they go to. And it promotes, the perception of quality. I think there's no question that every business wants to be seen as high tech, cutting edge. This perception helps to build trust inherently. So let's bring on Dr. Roshan Parikh, who is the president of Dental Bar, and let's go through the different aspects of building technology. Dr. Ro, are you there?
I am here.
There you are.
Hey.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming on. Any comments from the first part of this this webinar?
I mean, from when the question around trust and DSOs is so valuable and how to gain it, because DSOs, I kind of say, like 10 years ago, DSO was more of like a 4-letter word, and now docs know that they're here to stay, and patients are even becoming aware of what a DSO is. So I think that the trust factor, when for DSOs that are acquisitional by nature, you're buying 70 or 80% of what you're buying is goodwill. And what's the majority, of what goodwill is? It's trust. And so if you're paying, even if you just take financial dollars of what trust is worth, I mean, it could be worth 70 or 80% of a practice.
True. So true. Yeah. And I think it's interesting to have me and you on together in the sense that I run a small boutique practice and you run a multi-location, higher volume practice. But what's interesting is when I look at your background right now, your perception, just by the design, is perceived as a boutique high-end practice simply because of design. So if I'm a practice and I walk into there, I'm going to say, wow, they've really got their stuff together here. It smells nice, looks great, design is great. I'm already thinking that I'm going to get better care. So let's talk about number one, well-reviewed and recommended. How important is this to a DSO?
I mean, the recommendation part is everything. If you look at, customer acquisition cost in a competitive, we're in Manhattan. If you look at customer acquisition cost in Manhattan, I mean, you could easily be $250 plus. A recommendation and a referral is free, or maybe, there's some referral mechanics where the patient gets a gift card, or both folks get whitening or something, but it's much closer to free, and it's trusted. So it's
and what can you incorporate with technology that would help in this, review centric society that we're in?
Yeah, I mean, maybe the story that I would tell is real quick. It's like, just in Manhattan, you can't have, when I first started here in Manhattan a few months back, the Dental Bar team would talk about, don't go to this deli on 26th, go to the one on 23rd, or don't go to the one on 6th, go to the one on 5th. And that, to me, as an outsider, I live in Atlanta too, and the bagels or the deli aren't that great there in comparison to here. And so I think that thought around consistency is really huge, because in Manhattan, you can't be a bad bagel or a bad deli. I mean, you wouldn't last 60 days here. Everything has to be great. So like the consistency across providers, and especially in the DSOs, like how do you calibrate clinicians to all be at the 50-yard line? Probably impossible, but like you could probably get them between the 40s, and that works. But if they're between the 20s, probably going to result in a lot of erosion of trust.
Yeah, we're going to get into that a little bit later. From a tech standpoint, from this aspect, my recommendation is to have give the patient an option to review you when they leave. Right? I know that there's companies out here that as they're walking out the door, if this is a patient that you think had a good experience, you send them a link and say, give me a review. And, even if 25% of people do it, every time that I see a dental office that has 300 reviews, I know they're using some type of technology that simply sends the patient a link on their phone, makes it very simple for them, and allows them to have great reviews. Let's talk about efficient practice operations. This is one thing that we're seeing with Pearl by incorporating AI into the scheduling. The entire team can prepare for what's coming that day. So, a patient's coming in and they're just having hygiene. However, we're seeing that there's something that wasn't diagnosed. Maybe there's interproximal decay. So we can get the insurance checked. We can have, the cassette ready, make sure there's doctor and assistant time, and be ready so that as soon as we present treatment to the patient, if they say yes, we've got the chair ready, we're ready to go, so we can get them in and out, and add another 30 minutes and do a filling. What other technology or what are your thoughts on that with efficient practice operations?
Yeah, I mean, we're open 7 days a week. We run 2 shifts, Monday through Friday. And so for us, we have the need for even the morning shift and the evening shift to kind of have a trust transfer between each other. So like the need for efficiency for us is pretty well pronounced. I think that we have a morning huddle and then we have an afternoon huddle, and then that kind of time in between, we always have the folks that kind of participate in both and take the gospel from one and say, okay, this patient needed a crown and build up and is coming back in the afternoon and is on your schedule. So I mean, those handoffs are so crucial, because to the patient, they come into your 4 walls and they make the assumption that everybody communicates with everybody all the time, and it's going to be absolutely perfect. No matter if they came in at 8, if you came in at 3, if you came in at 6, I mean, that you assume that everybody knows everything and they read all the past notes, and they know that, earlier you were saying that like Mr. Jones gets cold and needs a blanket. Well, I mean, regardless of who the provider is or who the assistant is, because he's coming to the same 4 walls, he assumes that he's getting a blanket.
Yeah.
And so we need to take for us as in clinical operations and practice operations, we need to do a better job of taking what the patient expects and making it what we should expect.
Yeah. Let's talk about evident knowledge and expertise. And this is something that I've seen DSOs struggle with because, many are hiring younger doctors or less experienced doctors. What's some technology that you guys have employed that has helped the optics of having this evident knowledge and this expertise?
Yeah. I mean, for us, we use intraoral scanners. I think that to your earlier point, kind of has the perception that creates the reality of it's more consistent, or we have more of an expertise because we're using the latest and greatest.
Right.
That's something that we've seen has been helpful. We do same day crown and bridge where it's applicable, and so having a CEREC in office and being able to do things and know that you can get your crown the same day or an inlay or onlay, I think that creates it.
Yeah, you definitely have the perception even though, CEREC's been around for what, 20 years now, not everybody has embraced in-office scanning and in-office milling. So if you're a DSO that's doing this, you're still perceived as cutting edge, right? Especially if they've never had a same day restoration. It's like, wait, I don't have to come back.
That's right.
And that really leads to, so you have a twofold with that. You have the perception of being high tech, cutting edge, but then you also have the convenience. They're expecting to have to take another day off of work or a half day or whatever it is. And when you can get it to them that day, it's a huge convenience factor.
Yes, that's absolutely right. I mean, if a lab is taking 2 weeks for a restoration, like I always say, like there's nothing good that happens in those 2 weeks.
Right. Right. Yeah. The patient's always biting on soft bread with their provisionals, right?
Yeah.
Breaking things off.
That's right.
Okay, let me skip forward here. Team-wide alignment. We've talked a little bit about this with, you were saying with your morning huddles. I think one aspect that's helping here as well is this second opinion that happens with AI, to where you have a schedule today and you may think you're doing this. However, the AI has also taken a look at all of your charts, all of your radiographs, and made other recommendations saying, I know that they're getting this, but here's a few things that haven't been treatment planned. And what can happen is during that morning huddle or afternoon huddle, in your case, you guys have two, the entire team can get aligned. And I'm not just talking about the clinical team, the front office staff, even even if you just have dedicated sterilization team, I mean, they can be ready for the increase in, another cassette that may need to happen. Are there any other technologies that you guys have employed to have team-wide alignment?
We use maybe like an old school daily whiteboard and kind of setting goals and going through the huddle. I think is a form of alignment, but a lot of it for us has been more manual to this point, and more kind of qualitative in terms of the office manager going through, or store manager going through a soundtrack. And so I think that we have some opportunities in how to use technology to have more consistent team alignment.
Yeah. Now, pain-free care, this is difficult. To be truly pain-free in our practices, I mean, if you can do a palatal injection and have zero pain, you're amazing. Like you are Dr. Malamed or something. But I think there's other small little aspects too. Like even when I'm a patient, putting in a bite block, I have a hard time keeping my mouth open, right? We always tell the patients you have multiple muscles to close your mouth. You only have one muscle to keep it open. And just a bite block in my mouth makes me so comfortable as a patient. There's other things that I know some other DSOs are incorporating, like the wand for giving injections, or even just having great training on anesthesia, or incorporating conscious sedation. What's your thoughts on some of those?
Yeah, I mean, I think that all of those are, like for actual physical pain or perception of physical pain, I think that those things are huge for us. I mean, Dental Bar, we have heated and massaging chairs. We'll use, they can watch Netflix. They have noise canceling headphones. We have meditation tracks that they can choose from.
Awesome.
Even though they always pick Netflix majority.
Yeah.
Warm blankets, eucalyptus towel at the end.
Yeah.
I mean, all of those things to even help alleviate the anxiety that could be associated with pain.
Right.
So I think that there's even like, it's almost like pre pain-free care? Like,
Yep.
what do you do to make it where the probability is less there?
Yeah, and let's be honest, a lot of that stuff isn't that expensive. But when the patient talks to their friends or family, going back to some of the first slides when we're talking about referrals, they're not going to say how amazing your preparation was, right? Oh, the crown they did was amazing. No, it's like, can you believe that they had a eucalyptus scent towel and it was like I was at a sushi place, or I was at I was at a great spa. I was getting this massage and the chair was warm and I had a blanket on. I mean, I fell asleep even. That builds trust that then builds referrals for sure. Positive treatment outcomes. What from a technology standpoint, I know you talked about intraoral scanning. Is that one where you would say you get better positive treatment outcomes because of that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, when you're able to scan a prep and then look at the scan and then build the crown off of that, over time you're able to see that, okay, I'm not I can't see this distal lingual margin. I should do a better job of retraction, do a better job of prepping. You can see that your shoulder prep maybe isn't as smooth as you think that it is when you
blow it up 100x, right?
That's right. Yeah. That's right. I think that technology really helps make you a better clinician, because you're able to see not your own mistakes, but your own realities in a high def in high def. I think that really helps level up providers.
Now, consistency, this is one that I'm very passionate about when I talk about AI. I mean, one thing that AI is good at is consistency. Consistency, speed, scale. But when you talk about consistency in dentistry, it's a difficult problem. Like I discussed before, you show me some radiographs, you show you some great radiographs, my brother, my dad, your neighbor, we all see different things. And we're even inconsistent with ourselves. So if you show me an FMX and then, you wait 3 months and you show me the same thing, I may see different things. So now that we have, Pearl is the only FDA approved AI software that you can show your patients that has multiple pathologies. This can bring consistency to your providers, and especially you as the president of a multi-location practice, you have multiple doctors that you're trying to keep consistent. And like you said, I know you're a sports guy, I'm a car guy. You're bringing them to the 50-yard line, right? I'm bringing them to the final stretch. But that's difficult from a managerial standpoint. What is your thoughts on that?
I mean, I could, if I look at myself in the mirror, I think when I look at consistency, when I was practicing full-time as a dentist, I had so many times when a patient came in for a tooth problem and I gave them a tooth solution, and I was very myopic in what I was seeing. And so if I'm just seeing number 19 and I'm like, okay, we need to do a crown and build up on number 19, and maybe I see number 18 needs a mesio MO because I'm already in there and I see it. But even if I do an FMX and a COE on that patient, I'm really I've been guilty of being myopic with myself, and then maybe when the patient is back 6 months later and half of it's cleaned up, and then you look and you're like, I kind of need those 2 fillings, and you've done a good job of, I've done a good job of patient care and experience, and my team was phenomenal, and it's like, they're like, oh yeah, that's fine, go ahead and do it. But when I look at myself in the mirror, I'm like, I go back to the old x-rays and I'm like, oh, that was kind of there. And that like, if I can't be consistent with myself when I was the owner of one office, like if I had 20 doctors, let alone 100, like how can you actually make sure that they're consistent with each other when you as an enterprise are responsible for all of them? That is that's huge. I mean, that's trust.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's go to our second building block, and that is doing things in the patient's best interest. Communication. This, for me as a consumer, and I love this, right? If I can go on your website and make an appointment, if I can text you, if I can email you, I don't have to call you. I can be on a meeting and still be texting somebody. This efficient type of communication, and there's a lot of companies out there that are doing this. This needs to be just a basic requirement for any modern dental practice. Are you guys using technology like this, texting patients?
Yeah, I mean, that phrase of like to have simplicity is just unbelievably complicated on the back end. I mean, even the scheduling platform within our PMS wasn't good enough for us, so we built our own.
Wow.
And so patients can schedule in real time. We have like when you're walking by our offices, we have QR codes on the door, and you could go from that to directly schedule.
Wow.
It's convenience personified. We really work really hard to be better and better at the convenience part, the communication part. We're texting patients all day, every day, 7 days a week.
Yeah. Most consumers would rather be contacted through text, including me.
Yeah,
patient education. We've talked about this a little bit with intraoral scanning, intraoral photography, using artificial intelligence, unbiased opinions, going to consultative treatment planning. And that's kind of interesting. Do you want to expand on this and how you do treatment planning, how you communicate that to patients?
Yeah, definitely. I think of this as it's like co-discovery. You're showing the patient their own radiographs, intraoral photos, and probably less than 10 times in my career if I had a patient who's a radiologist, but we're showing them x-rays and images, and they're like, oh, what's that? And what's this? And we're going through that, I guess we're kind of getting into shared decision making, problem, consequence, solution of like, hey, here's your problem. You have this hole in your tooth. Here's the consequence. If you don't do something, you might end up needing an implant. And here's the solution that I could prescribe for you today. I mean, that going through that co-discovery phase and kind of coming to those conclusions together really makes it where, I mean, patients feel like they were heard. They probably won't recognize that they're part of the problem, but they want to be part of the solution, and you want to empower them to be part of the solution.
Right. And transparency. This was something that I did wrong early in my career. And, different people have different experiences and thoughts on this. But now if a patient asks me how much something is, if I know the answer, I tell them right there. I used to do this whole, and maybe this is a little more old fashioned, but I used to do this whole like, well, I'm going to call Lucy. She's going to come in. She kind of knows all that. And I found that if you just tell them right away and you say it with like a straight face and look them in the eye, they respect it more. And it's not this bait and switch. Like, okay, I'm going to show you how great this is going to be. And then we're going to tell you, oh, shoot, it's going to be this expensive. It's like, this is what it is. This is how much it costs. And, these are the complications that may happen. I find that when it comes from the doctor, it builds that trust. What's your thought on that?
No, I agree. I mean, this transparency from, when I was at Walmart to now, it's just something that we think about quite a bit at Walmart and for us at Dental Bar. I mean, we put a lot of our fees on the website, and it's there so that there really is, like, it's not you walked in and you were wearing a fancy watch and fancy shoes and you're going to charge more than the other person. But it goes back to what you were saying earlier of 40% of the population just doesn't trust the dentist, period.
Yep.
So
yeah,
there's
that's really the epitome of transparency is what you guys do. I always tell, because you see practice management people, presenters, and they're like, show them how great it's going to look, and then show them the fee, right? And get them excited about it. And I'm kind of like, I would love to drive a Ferrari, but I just can't afford it. So there's no reason for me to go to the dealership. And it's the same thing. Like, I'm sure someone would love to have full mouth rehabilitation, but if they can't afford it, then I don't know. I mean, we can tell them from a health standpoint for sure, but I think we really need to be transparent with people with fees. So I love that you guys are doing that. Personalization. This, I think, is where technology is really going to take over in the next 5 years. And that is when you have AI interacting with treatment planning, when you have more of a personalized treatment planning. So it's not, this patient has, mesial distal buccal caries on number 19, so we're doing crown. And this patient has mesial distal buccal caries, so we're doing crown. But patient A has diabetes. It's a female. She's 47 years old. She has, 2 to 3 millimeters of bone loss, et cetera. Now, we know based on hundreds of patients like her, even hundreds of thousands of patients like her, she should have this type of crown. To where patient B, when you bring in their medical history and the cross-section of their masseter and, the bacterial colonization in their mouth, this really becomes personalized and is assisted by the technology. And how do you think that would impact the trust or patient acceptance?
Yeah, I mean, a mentor of mine told me, always personal is best. And I think that when you look at communication, the personal is best. And then the personalization of the healthcare experience, I would even add, I think it has to go that way. I work with a salivary diagnostics company, and it's like, how do you look at, the saliva to kind of marry that data with the data that you were talking about to kind of make it where, what's the predisposition for me getting these things? And then what have I been prescribed, or what should I be prescribed in the future? And having AI enable that so that the patient just gets a more consistent experience. I mean, yeah, that's where we're going. And
yeah, I just had Dr. Sampson on from the UK, who's kind of leading this charge with salivary diagnostics and for my podcast. And I think it'll get to the point where almost every patient is having that salivary diagnostics and all these other very minimally invasive tests that can give us as clinicians and as practice owners more information to do this personalized treatment that I think will allow patients to say yes more, because they'll see the diagnostic vigilance that we go through. So last, I'd like for you to take this one, convenience. What are some of the technologies, you've talked a little bit about it with being able to schedule. What are some other technologies that make it convenient for your patients?
Yeah, definitely.
This is huge in New York, right? I mean, no one has time in New York. In LA, we have a little bit more time, but in New York, like nothing.
It's minute by minute. Like if we're, patient's appointment starts at 1 and it's 1:02, they're at the front desk. So we want to get started at 12:59. I think that convenience is, you're looking at it from, how do you schedule an appointment? How do you go through the efficient workflow of a dental office, get presented treatment options? We're like starting to use your cell phone as your credit card processing terminal versus having something that was looks like it was ripped out of a New York City taxi cab. I think that convenience on the back end, being able to leave with an appointment or kind of schedule at your convenience, it's really taking the value prop that's so much having previously or historically, it's the doctor up here and it's like, yeah, I'm only available these days and I'll see you on this day. And yeah, you'll take off of work because I'm worth it, to kind of flipping it on the patient side and saying like, okay, when do you want to come in? When you want to come in, we're open. We're going to give you a consistent experience. And, you know, for all those things, we're still in network with your insurance. That's where we're going. I mean, that's where patients want to be, as the consumer experience and the healthcare experience become one experience.
Yep. No, I completely agree with you. So what final thoughts do you have?
I like that you have a QR code, you know, after 15 years of being a thing, you know, it's like finally got its real revelation.
Yeah, the QR code on the slide has really been, I like it, again, as a person who goes to a lot of CE courses. I like having QR. It's so easy. So
yeah, I mean, I think that AI, I mean, we use AI or AI uses us on a daily basis. I think when I think of our group here in New York at Dental Bar, I think that having AI empowered patient care is really going to help consistency. But I think like in a place that's as fast moving as Manhattan, it'll breed more trust in a patient population that's inherently distrustful. So I'm excited for it.
Yeah. Well, thanks everybody. Thanks, Dr. Rowe. And
Welcome.
if you guys are interested, you can scan the QR code or go to hellopearl.com and find out more about the future of dentistry powered by AI and how you can build trust and you know, build these raving fans through the use of trust. So thanks everybody.
Great, thank you so much. This is all the time we have for today. I would like to thank Dr. Stanley and Dr. Rowe for your time, thoughtfulness, and insights today. I would also like to thank Pearl for sponsoring today's featured session. And to our attendees who joined us, thank you for making time to be part of the Business of Dentistry's virtual forum. Make sure you check out our other amazing sessions we have going on during this event. And please let us know if you have any questions, comments, or feedback. Thank you again for joining us. We look forward to having you at future Becker's events.